Rethinking the Rifle Squad, the story behind the M27A weapon born from a complaint. Most rifles enter military service through a formal requirements process. A committee defines specifications, manufacturers submit prototypes, and a winner is chosen after exhaustive trials. The M27 Infantry Automatic Rifle had a messier, more human origin point. It grew out of years of frustration voiced by Marines on the ground in Iraq, who found themselves lugging a heavy, belt-fed automatic weapon through narrow streets and cramped buildings where its bulk worked against them rather than for them. The weapon in question, the M249 SAW, was never built with urban combat in mind. It was a support weapon meant to anchor a position and pour out rounds, not a tool for the fast, fluid movement that close-quarters fighting demanded. That gap between what the Marine Corps had and what its infantry actually needed in places like Fallujah set the stage for an unusual procurement decision, one that would eventually ripple far beyond its original, narrow purpose. Picking a foundation, why the 416 Hong Kong dollars? Rather than commissioning an entirely new design, the Marine Corps turned to an already proven platform, the Heckler & Koch 416 Hong Kong dollars. By the mid-2000s, this rifle had built a strong reputation in the special operations community, prized for a gas piston operating system that traded the direct impingement approach used in the classic M16 and M4 for something considered more tolerant of sand, mud, and prolonged neglect in the field. The mechanical distinction is worth understanding. Direct impingement rifles cycle by routing hot, dirty propellant gas back through a tube directly into the bolt carrier group, which keeps the rifle light but also means carbon and fouling accumulate exactly where precision matters most. A piston-driven system instead taps gas to drive a rod that pushes the bolt carrier, keeping the worst of the combustion residue away from the action. It's a heavier, slightly more complex solution, but one that tends to keep functioning reliably for longer stretches between cleanings, a meaningful advantage for troops operating far from maintenance facilities. Adopted into Marine Corps service in 2010, this adapted rifle received the designation M27 and was issued, at first, to a single Marine in each fire team, the automatic rifleman, who would now carry something closer to a beefed-up rifle than a traditional squad machine gun. The experiment that changed everything. For several years, the M27 stayed in its lane, one specialized weapon within a fire team that otherwise still relied heavily on the M4 carbine. That changed when Marine Corps testing units began running structured comparisons between the two rifles, evaluating Marines' performance on accuracy drills, target engagement speed, and reliability under realistic field conditions. The outcome wasn't subtle. Marines shooting the M27 consistently grouped their shots more tightly and engaged targets faster and more confidently at extended ranges than those using the M4. Some of the advantage came down to barrel design. The M27's heavier, free-floating barrel resists the warping and accuracy loss that thinner barrels experience as they heat up during sustained firing. Some came down to the inherent mechanical consistency of the piston system itself. Confronted with this data, Marine Corps leadership made a decision that few outside observers anticipated. Instead of treating the M27 as a permanent niche product for automatic riflemen, they began phasing it in as the default rifle across entire infantry battalions, gradually retiring the M4 from frontline service. A weapon conceived to replace one squad machine gun within a 4-Marine team ended up replacing the primary rifle for nearly everyone in the infantry. Trading bulk for precision. This shift represented more than a hardware swap. It reflected a quiet bet about how infantry combat should be fought. Traditional automatic rifle doctrine leaned on volume, flooding an area with enough rounds to suppress an enemy position and allow maneuver. The M27's adoption nudged Marine Corps thinking toward an alternative emphasis. Equip every rifleman with a weapon precise enough that well-aimed shots could substitute for some of the suppressive volume previously expected from a dedicated automatic weapon. This wasn't just about marksmanship pride. Ammunition is heavy, and every round a unit carries has to be physically hauled, tracked, and eventually resupplied, sometimes through hostile or difficult terrain. A doctrine built around precision rather than sheer volume offers a logistical upside, fewer rounds expended for comparable tactical effect, in theory easing the resupply burden on units operating far from secure lines. To make that bet pay off, the Marine Corps simultaneously invested in marksmanship training, recognizing that handing Marines a more accurate rifle accomplishes little if the institution doesn't also teach them to use that accuracy. The M27 rollout was paired with renewed attention to fundamentals, proper positioning, breath control, trigger discipline, skills that matter more when a rifle is capable of consistent hits well beyond typical carbine engagement distances. What the rifle looks like in practice. In Marine Corps configuration, the M27 typically pairs a fixed stock with a heavier barrel profile than the M4, along with an accessory rail system that accommodates optics suited to its extended effective range. It still fires the familiar 5.56 by 45 mm NATO round, which kept the logistics chain largely intact even as the weapon itself changed. There was no need to redesign ammunition supply or retrain quartermasters around a new cartridge. Compared to the M4, the M27 is noticeably heavier and somewhat less compact, trade-offs that matter most in tight interior spaces or vehicle-mounted operations where a shorter weapon is easier to maneuver. Marine Corps leadership judged that the accuracy and reliability gains were worth those trade-offs for the infantry as a whole, even if the calculus might look different for specialized units that spend more time in vehicles or buildings. The pushback. Not everyone embraced the change enthusiastically. Critics inside and outside the institution raised several recurring objections. The per unit cost of the M27 substantially exceeds that of the well-established M4, and some questioned whether the measurable accuracy improvements justified that expense across an entire branch rather than reserving the rifle for specialists. Others worried about the disappearance of a dedicated automatic fire role within the fire team. When every Marine carries a broadly similar weapon, no one is specifically equipped and tasked with the sustained suppressive fire that a true automatic weapon like the M249 was built to deliver. There's also the broader, ongoing concern about infantry load. Decades of additional body armor, communications equipment, optics, and batteries have steadily increased what an individual infantry Marine carries into the field, and a heavier primary rifle adds another increment to that burden, however modest it might be on its own. These aren't trivial objections, and reasonable observers continue to debate whether the trade-offs favor the M27 universally or whether its benefits are more pronounced in certain types of terrain and engagement distances than others. Why this story matters beyond the rifle itself. What makes the M27's history genuinely interesting isn't just the mechanical specifics of gas pistons and barrel profiles. It's what the adoption process reveals about how a large military institution can, under the right circumstances, revise long-held assumptions in response to evidence. The rifle wasn't designed from the outset to become a universal infantry weapon. It earned that status incrementally, through testing data that contradicted the original, narrower plan, and through leadership willing to act on those results even though doing so meant discarding years of established doctrine about the distinct roles of riflemen and automatic riflemen within a fire team. That kind of institutional flexibility is relatively rare in large defense bureaucracies, where sunk costs, established training pipelines, and entrenched doctrine often make adaptation slow and difficult. The M27's journey from a specialist's tool to a universal sidearm of the infantry stands as a reminder that procurement decisions aren't always permanent the moment they're made. Sometimes they're simply a starting point, subject to revision once real-world feedback starts rolling in. A snapshot, not an endpoint. The M27 remains the Marine Corps' standard infantry rifle today, even as the broader U.S. military continues exploring next-generation small arms programs, alternative ammunition concepts, and other innovations that could eventually prompt another round of reassessment. Whatever shape future infantry weapons take, the M27's path offers a useful case study. Technical merit alone rarely changes doctrine, but technical merit combined with rigorous testing, honest data, and institutional willingness to listen can. The rifle that began as one Marine's answer to a single fire team's machine gun problem ended up reshaping what standard issue means for an entire branch of the U.S. Armed Forces, a quiet but consequential shift, decided not by committee mandate but by performance under scrutiny.